Hi everyone, Nova here from Brighter Outlook Counselling Service. Tonight I have a very special guest with me. You may remember the story of Julie in the media. Julie is a domestic violence survivor, a narcissistic abuse survivor, and a survivor of coercive control. Julie did all the right things. She went and sought, and not only sought, but obtained a restraining order to protect her from her abuser. However, Julie was betrayed by the very system that was designed to protect her. Julie joins me tonight to tell us her story. Welcome, Julie. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Nova, for having me, and thank you to all your viewers for tuning in and listening this evening. It's a privilege for me to be here and share my story with you, and I just hope that it helps other women and domestic violence survivors and people who are currently in that type of situation. Look, with my story, I was very young when I got married to somebody who was 10 years older than me, and I guess the control started at the very onset, the very beginning of the relationship. His view was very much that a woman should be submissive to the man, and he had been married before, so I guess I thought, well, maybe he is more mature than me and understands, you know, relationships a bit better than me. It was my first real relationship. And boy, did I have a lot of lessons to learn. The control started from the onset. It was, where are you going? Who are your friends? You're going to work, I'll pick you up, I'll be there. He would just show up at my workplace. And then it got to the point where he wanted us to move in together when I wasn't ready, and then was coercive control through that. And then it was, you shouldn't have your own bank account. We should have a joint account because we're in a relationship now and that's what couples do. So the control started really early. I really didn't see the warning signs. There was something in my gut saying to me, this isn't right, should this be happening? But through the alienation over time, I guess it was difficult for me to speak to family members, not only because it was embarrassing, but also I was frightened and I wasn't quite sure about the red flags, about what was happening to me, because when you're in that situation, you're so engulfed and embodied in it, that reality almost becomes quite distorted. And my view on and take on things, I guess he made me not believe in myself, to question my own judgment, to question what I was thinking, what I was saying. He would say regular things like, you're out of control, you don't know what you're saying, I know you better than you know yourself, you should think about things before you say them, you're too emotional, you know, you're so young, you've got a lot to learn. All these things were happening. And you know, through marriage, I mean, we had a huge fight on the wedding night. He pushed me up against the wall, and I remember from that time on, I just wanted to run away. Into the relationship, it was somewhat 7 years before there were any children. I didn't want to have any children with him, but the coercive control and I guess the pressure on me to conceive was from himself and from his parents, his family. And they'd say, well, you got married now, so your job is to produce children to carry our family name. Mm-hmm. And it was all about their family. It was nothing about myself or my family. It was all about them, and they felt entitled and that they were better than everybody else, and that's why the family name should carry on. So that's really what happened in the situation with children. It was like for me walking on eggshells 24/7. It was the most horrible experience, and the fights that erupted over absolutely nothing. I had to watch what I said all the time. If I bought anything new, he'd question it. He'd say, why did you buy that? He'd then smash it, put a hole in the wall somewhere. Anything new I bought for myself. There was one particular top that I had, which was a leopard print top. And he said only, you know, prostitutes wear leopard print. So the next time I went to wear it, it wasn't there. And I asked him if he'd seen it, but obviously we know he threw that out when I look back. He'd say women can't and shouldn't wear red lipstick. Only prostitutes wear red lipstick.
Oh my goodness.
And was really choosing what I should and shouldn't wear. So it was down to the finest thing, really. So from there, when I wanted a divorce, because it was, the violence was so escalated. I mean, he alienated me from all of my family, physically attacked my family, physically attacked myself, physically attacked the children really bad. And I got to the point where I said, I can't do this anymore because I know he's going to kill me, because he threatened to kill me. He said, if you ever leave, you will end up dead. I will take the children, you'll never see them again. So just to get to that point to leaving, a lot of the planning, it really was really hard to do because he was watching me every second. He was monitoring my phone, looking at emails. He had access to all my email accounts. Financially, he had control of everything. I didn't even have the password to the bank account. I was always a secondary card holder on a credit card so that he could just switch off my means to having any finances, any money whatsoever. So I was completely controlled by him in every sense of the word. He made it impossible for me to leave. So when I finally did, I really didn't leave with anything. At that time, there were 2 properties that we owned that I worked really hard for, which I put most of the money in for that. I worked day and night to pay those off, and I walked away with nothing because he then went to the bank and the property he put in his name, so that of course they weren't in my name, and he borrowed money against the property for his other life, which was prostitutes and hotels and
oh my goodness,
all sorts of things. So that's where a lot of the spending was going on, and if I wanted to buy food for the children, it became a huge issue. But anyway, so when I broke free, I obviously needed help from family members, and that's just what happened. And in that process, he began stalking me. So I went firstly to live with my mother, and he began stalking my mum's house. He was driving up and down all the time. I would see his car. He was standing at the corner of the street. I was really scared for my life, and I said, Mum, I'm scared for all of us. What am I going to do? I have to go to the police. This is all that I've got left because I'm afraid he's going to kill me. He's going to be waiting and he's going to do it.
Yeah.
And I know that this particular person, this abuser, has the ability and the capability to do so.
Yeah.
He's fantasized about it. He's really got his plan in order.
So you were in fear for your life.
I was in fear for my life.
And you were being controlled
Yes,
by
I
your
was.
abuser, so
Yes.
you couldn't escape
That's right.
that prison. So, Julie, just from what you've told me in this short period of time, screams narcissistic abuse
Yes,
to me, as
I
well
know
as
that now.
Yeah, you know that now. But
Yes.
when you were going through it,
Yes.
this isn't always evident as being abuse. Did you know when you were being financially abused? You know that that's financial abuse now, but did you know that there was that there was something wrong with that, or did you perceive, as many other domestic violence perceive, that this was being done under? At the very start, being done under the guise of caring. You just let me take care of
That's
it.
exactly
And
what he said.
I'll do that, and you just, you know, make yourself look pretty, or words to that effect.
You don't need to worry about the finance. That's my job. That's the stress for me to handle.
Yeah.
And that's what he would say. Or women don't know how to cope with money. Women are not good at planning. Women are big spenders, which I've never been a big spender.
Yeah.
But he would use those excuses, and that he was helping.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's, and I'm sure you know now, Julie, that's what we call gaslighting.
Yes.
I speak to victims and survivors of narcissistic abuse and coercive control every day. Gaslighting is a term we use, which means to distort the victim's reality. And this can be anything. This can be things as you trying to engage in a discussion around their very problematic behaviour.
Yes.
Abusive behaviour, and getting told that you're oversensitive, you're a drama queen. All you ever want to do is start an argument when you simply want to broach a very, very appropriate topic with them, and I guess get some accountability and responsibility from them.
And there was never any accountability. It was just lie built upon lie built upon lie. And if I asked any questions about any situation, about financials or about where he was going, what he was doing, he would disappear for 2 to 3 days at a time and take the car keys, so I couldn't go anywhere.
So not only were you being controlled, he was giving you the silent treatment.
He was giving me the silent treatment, and he was disappearing, taking any cash. So I was looking at the credit card, and he would often make sure there was a low amount on the particular credit card that I had, so I'd have very little. And that's when I needed to call my mum, my parents, for help. And
so what does this do to you, to a victim of this type of insidious abuse, Julie, when you're given the silent treatment and those strategies are put in place to punish you for daring, I guess, to have them be accountable or responsible for their actions. What does this do when it comes to, I guess, the next time when you want to broach a subject with them? Do you think twice about it for fear of having that punishment given to you again?
I did, and the long letters that he wrote outlining that my behaviour was wrong and I was ruining the relationship and I was at fault because I didn't know how to be a wife. And, you know, yes, I would think twice about it because I think, do I really want to go through all of that again?
Exactly. So you were being conditioned. You were being conditioned to I guess, put up with the abuse.
Exactly.
Your boundaries were being lowered ever so slowly so that in the end, you would have been accepting behaviour that was reprehensible, that you never in a million years would have accepted at the very beginning. And I guess the reason I'm saying this to you is because obviously we know that this abuse was 100% not your fault. But how often do we hear when it comes to domestic violence victims, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you leave earlier? If it was this bad in the end and you know it started off this early, why didn't you just get up and go? And I guess these are the reasons, because you're actually conditioned to put up with that abuse.
That's right. And when I did leave, the stalking and the phone calls and the swearing and the messages, there were hundreds and hundreds of messages. You effing S-L-U-T, you this, you that. It was all about just swearing at me and going off wherever he could several times a day. And the stalking, he was relentless. I also, he slashed my car tyres as well.
Oh my goodness.
When I had found the money to buy a new car, he slashed the tyres, which is at the front of my mum's house, and I thought, I have to get away. So when I finally got the courage to go to the police and filed for a DVO, the police at the police station said to me, oh, do you really want a DVO? Every man, woman and dog now has a DVO. And I said, excuse me, officer, but I'm not every man, woman and dog. This is serious. He wants to murder me. You need to listen to me.
I imagine seeing those your tyres slashed. What must have been going through your mind? Am I next?
Yes.
You know, that is just intimidation.
Absolutely, it was. And I was in fear for my life, so I went to the police and you know, they really tried not to give me a DVO, and I demanded, I pushed, I said, you have to help me, I don't have anywhere else to go. So finally, you know, even just telling them what was going on, it was hard enough having to relive it again. And we finally got to the DVO, and then there was the court appearance, so they found it really difficult to serve the abuser because he was always very cagey. Slippery. Addresses here, there. I mean, they just couldn't find him. And the address that was on his license was actually, it looked like a physical address, but it was a like a mailbox setup, which give you a physical address for businesses. So the police were going to the wrong address. And I actually had to say to them, that is not his address. Why haven't you served him? And they tell me, what address do you have on file? I had to put two and two together and say, that's not the address, and give him the address where I thought he was living.
Oh my goodness.
So then I appeared in court, and of course he argued it. The first thing he said to the magistrate was, she's delirious, she's emotional, she's neurotic, she's crazy. And that magistrate took one look at him and he said, you're an abuser. He knew straight away.
Wow.
Then I found out through all of the DVO breaches, he wasn't getting charged. Nothing was happening, and I couldn't understand why they're not following through. Every time I wanted to file, you know, a breach, I was treated as a nuisance. There was no follow-up. Nobody would call me for anything. Every time I called them, you're going to have to come into the police station, and I'd say, I can't, it's too dangerous for me to keep coming in and out. Can we not do this over the phone? And they'd say, we can't verify you. And I'd say, but I'll give you all the details. Can you do some security checks? No, you're going to have to come in. So every time I had to file a breach, I had to go into the police station. Anytime I wanted to ask a question, I had to go into the police station. They were just unwilling to help.
Oh my
I
goodness.
can see how many women are dying because of this system.
Yeah. So here you are. You're the victim.
Yes.
You're the victim
Yes.
of domestic violence, narcissistic abuse. You have reached the point where you finally had that courage, and you said no more. And how much courage must that have taken for you to walk into the police station, because you would know now, well, you experienced it, that with nearly every domestic violence victim, to get to that point, there is so much domestic violence behind them, and it takes so many incidents, or however many incidents, to actually get to that point where they feel brave enough to go to the police and say, protect me, I need your help, I don't feel safe. So you go to the police, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're being treated by the system, by the police, in exactly the same flippant way with disregard, the same disregard that the narcissist, your abuser in your life, treated you with.
Let me say, the whole process has been an extension of the abuse. And to have a male officer look at me and not take me seriously, there's got to be some component of inadequate training and misogynistic behaviour going on, because they, at that time, did not understand DV.
Yeah.
So then I found out that the abuser's friend from school, who's a police officer, decided to help him and get involved. And what was happening was, I saw all of the messages. I had all the messages on a phone that was stolen from me. It was returned to me, and all of those messages showed very clearly that the police officer was aiding and enabling a violent offender. He was perverting the course of justice.
So all of those times you were going to the police, and then I guess going to court thinking, this is going to be the day when I'm going to get justice. There's going to be consequences for this abuser. The evidence and all the paperwork was disappearing in the hands of the police.
And footage. So footage from where there was actual physical abuse, the footage actually disappeared. On 2 different occasions.
Goodness. So evidence that could have proven, without a doubt, video footage that could have proven his guilt, that this person was a malignant, manipulative abuser, your abuser. That footage disappeared.
Yes. And when I questioned the police about it, they became really angry. And once again, they showed no accountability, no concern. And they even went to the extent of calling my matter a petty DV matter. Now I know how so many women are dying. It's ridiculous. So something really has to change. If a woman goes to a police station and she demands to have a DVO and asks for some type of support, she needs that support. Give her that support. Listen to a victim of DV. It's hard enough for them to leave, but to come to a police station, it's even harder.
Absolutely.
And any follow-up. So follow-up needs to happen. Call the victim. Are you okay? Don't just transfer them to all the services, which is what they did to me. Oh, we're going to give your name to this service and that service and this service. Yes, the services are good, but they don't save your life. The police need to enforce these types of behaviours and DV breaches. I've probably filed, there've probably been around 100 DV breaches, and I haven't been able to report all of them, because then I am seen to be a nuisance. And there, I believe, have been notes written on my police file which are personal opinions only, unproven, not true facts, simply opinions of officers that have said things about me which are untrue, which are discriminating and put me at a disadvantage. So not only did the police officer call the police stations, I believe, and it's in the messages, he said, if they call you, this is after I filed a breach, if the police call you, give them my name and then I'll give them heads up. This is your get out of jail free card. This is what a police officer who was supposed to serve and protect the community and protect me was saying to a violent abuser.
I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless that as you were producing evidence and you were
Yes.
following up
Yes.
on what was happening with regard to that evidence and seeing consequences, this particular officer was I guess
Enabling.
getting rid of the evidence
He was.
and I guess collaborating with other officers to make this go away. To who were they protecting? Who were the police protecting? The victim of the abuse?
Definitely not. They were protecting the abuser and the police officer's mate. It was all about helping out a mate no matter what he did. So I moved to an address away from my mum's home, and this address was a secure address that nobody knew apart from my mum. And the police officer found out some details.
So sorry, I interrupted you there, Julie. How did he get those details?
He unlawfully accessed the Q Prime database with the police service on 9 different occasions. I believe it was more, but 9 have only been suggested.
Yeah, suggested.
But on several occasions, he unlawfully accessed the Q Prime database and he pulled out those details. And not only did he then pull out those details, but he gave them to the violent abuser, knowing.
You were in hiding, you
Yes.
were in fear for your life.
Yes.
And a police officer handed your location,
Yes.
your confidential private details to your abuser.
That's right. How chilling is it? How wrong and abhorrent is that type of behaviour? It's just shocking.
Julie, it's very obvious to people watching this video tonight that they can't see your face.
Yes.
I can see your face. You're obviously looking at me. Tell us the reason that you wanted to do this video anonymously and not to be seen by the public.
Well, I am protected by a DV order and also a court order which protects myself and my children, so I can't identify myself or them.
Yeah.
To remain anonymous protects my identity, but also I want to do this to help people. So
Yeah.
I'm willing to go to some type of effort so I could help someone.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I know that I'm grateful, and I know that there are so many victims and survivors who have gone through exactly what you have gone through, who will now have that little bit of a bit more courage because that you're their voice. You've been there. You've been where they are.
Well, I've been advocating for quite some years now, and I have been doing my best to educate the police. I don't know if you're aware, but I met with the previous police commissioner, and we had a long meeting, and I went through detail by detail what needed to happen and what changes need to happen. So I am advocating for women and children, and I can only speak as a woman because I'm a woman and my abuser was a male.
Yeah.
But it's taking a very long time. It's far too slow. Things aren't happening fast enough, and the comments online that I'm seeing, there are women right now in Queensland whose partners or ex-partners are current serving police officers, and these women are subject to DV, and they have nowhere to go to, because if they're in an isolated area and they go to the police station where the partner or ex-partner works, there is nowhere for them to go.
Yeah.
That paperwork will just go out the window. So how do we help these women? There is no auditing process right now. This came out through my court case appearances when I made a matter against the Queensland Police Service for breaching my privacy, and I won. Let me tell you, that was a 2.5-year battle. I had no legal representation. I was self-represented, and they had a barrister and like 8 different lawyers, and their barrister had 35 years experience, and they were relentless. They were bullies. I was bullied all the way through that.
So just once again, correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, you're telling me that once they found out that, let's just say it like it is, there was corruption. There's corruption in every institution, in every organisation, but hey, this is an organisation that is, you've got one job.
Yes.
Your job is to protect us. Yes. This corruption, talk to me about this corruption.
Well, there was no apology. I would have liked somebody to say, I'm sorry, we acknowledge what we've done. It shouldn't have happened. He did breach your privacy. They didn't do that. I had to go to the lengths of, after everything I'd been through, going through a court case for 2.5, nearly 3 years, and the documents that they filed, they were relentless. I'm no lawyer, I'm not trained in law.
Yeah.
So for me, having to learn about this particular process and having to fight back, there were many sleepless nights. I can tell you the stress that was upon my shoulders. Hiding from an abuser, hiding from a police officer who had a grudge and a gun.
Yeah.
And now being abused further through a system which is meant to protect me.
Yeah.
I can't understand how that funding was allocated and allowed to fight a victim of domestic violence suffering a breach of privacy from the Queensland Police.
That I can't understand it either, Julie. So once they found out that there was corruption going on, they fought you in getting some kind of compensation for your trauma.
Yes.
They fought that instead of going, hey, our bad.
All of my dealings with the Queensland Police Service have just been another extension of the abuse, and have triggered any of my trauma or post-traumatic stress disorders, because there has been no help. I don't know what to say, and I understand what other people have gone through and are going through and are yet to go through, because the culture is all wrong.
Yeah.
We need to protect victims, not police officers who've done the wrong thing. He should be in jail. That officer should be serving a prison sentence right now.
Tell our viewers tonight, Julie, what actually happened to that officer that betrayed your trust and betrayed his fellow officers.
Yes, well, he is still employed by the Queensland Police Service. They docked him a little bit in his pay, and he is currently on a paid holiday, as the community sees it. The community, Australia, and people around the world are outraged that this police officer is still in a job.
So here you are, you can't even show your face for the fear of what may happen to you.
Exactly.
You're essentially in hiding.
I am.
You have to change your name. You have to change your appearance. You have to, I guess, in certain institutions, you have to protect yourself. So here you are, having to just completely shake up your life.
Yes.
And this guy's getting paid to sit at home and potentially lay by the pool.
On a paid holiday, and I've had to move addresses twice. So the first time because he gave out the details, and the second time I had to move again.
Oh my goodness.
And so I don't lead a normal life. I can't just go out like a normal person. I'm always looking over my shoulder. I get into my car, I lock the doors, I check the car. I'm always normally with somebody so that I'm not alone. I'm not living life like a normal person, and there's just been no consequence for the people that have done this to me. There are no ramifications for them. They've just gotten away with it. The abuser is hiding overseas. He's been convicted. There are 2 warrants, I believe, or 3 for his arrest. And then you've got this police officer who's just sitting at home on a paid holiday.
Oh my goodness.
And I've had to fight.
Yeah. And Julie, it's domestic violence is a family issue. You've got your children to think about too. So this has affected them as well.
All of us, the nightmares, the sleepless nights, you name it. Everything for me is a worry. It's just a burden on my shoulders. And then, asking the police for help when I needed it most, and this happening to me. Yeah. It's a horrible system.
You must have felt so violated.
I did, and I still do. And I don't even know if we'll ever get past it, what we're going to do. I take it day by day.
Julie, I guess one thing we also want to do today is to get across just how scared you were to be able to get to that position of asking for this restraining order. Tell us about the messages that were going back and forth between your abuser and this police officer, because I believe that they reflect directly how in fear for your life you actually were. Tell us about those messages.
So the messages between the abuser and the police officer were, F her. Have you filed a cross DBO against her yet? The abuser would ask the police officer, oh mate, do I have enough for a DV against her? What else do I need? And he would say, well, you need to do these things, record her, bait her, get her on the phone, send this email, copy me into any emails so, you know, she'll shit her pants. Let's turn up so she can see us in my pajero, so she can, I just want to see her shit herself.
So he was essentially teaching him how to get...
escalated violence.
To how to escalate the violence and how to be able to get across DVO on you, the true victim.
And I actually, this is on record in court, that it is alleged that this police officer has been an abuser and has committed acts of domestic violence against his ex-wife, who's too scared to come forward, I believe. This is on record, and in the DV court I spoke to the magistrate, and he ordered the prosecutor to have a look into everything that was going on.
Yeah.
But, you know, going through the courts and arguing my point and fighting for justice for what's right, it was a grueling process, and I did this so I would win, so I could show everybody, look what's happening, and set a precedent, a new precedent, to help other women whose details may be breached by the Queensland Police Service. It came out in that particular matter that there is no auditing system, so anybody can look you up at any time. They might see you and say, she looks really nice, or they might see a friend and go, oh, I wonder who that is, and they can go into that database and get your details in a second. No one's going to follow it up.
So, so Julie, tell us how far up the the hierarchy does this corruption go?
That's a really good question. They say that the fish rots from the head, and I'm hoping, I don't know if it's wishful thinking, that the new police commissioner is going to do something about this, because the police officer was convicted. He had a sentence wholly suspended, so there was no jail time. Then his lawyer fought for that conviction to be overturned, and it went through to another magistrate, and that was overturned because of the age of the police officer. He's 50-something, and that was then passed over. It's like, we don't care what you've done to the victim, you're a police officer. And apparently this particular police officer had some references from mates who work with him, more misogynists. What credibility could a magistrate possibly give to officers that work with a police officer who's committed a criminal offence? You know, if a member of the public committed that offence, they would be in jail.
Absolutely.
So why do the same rules not apply? Why is he being protected?
Yeah.
So you may have seen through the media that the police commissioner has appealed that decision. So we'll see where that's going to take us.
Yeah. Julie, has anyone ever from the police, or from we were talking about the hypothetical hierarchy, has anyone ever said sorry?
No.
No one has ever apologised to you for what was done to you, how
Never.
you were violated?
Never. And I can't understand that. Where is the humanity, the compassion, the ethos for another living human being? When did the police or people become so sterile and people to not feel? I don't understand. And what if it was their mother, their sister, their daughter, their friend? I'm sure it would be a different situation then.
Absolutely.
When will they actually care?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Julie, what can we do? We obviously you're speaking out to get some justice, but from what you told me, your main goal is to help other domestic violence victims and narcissistic abuse victims, so that they don't go through what you went through. How can we change the system? How can we make it easier for victims to feel like they don't have to wait till they feel like they're about to be killed? Make it so that they don't have to produce text messages from their abuser that say, I'm going to kill you today. They don't have to walk into a police station with blood streaming from their nose and broken ribs and black eyes before anyone will take them seriously. How do we change the system?
Well, as we know, domestic violence does not discriminate. You can be highly educated, you can not be educated, you can be from any culture, background, any race.
You can
any
also be a man.
You can be a man, you can be a woman, children. Look, DV does not discriminate. So the first thing is realising that the most difficult time is when you're about to leave, because that is when the abuser may or may not go through the stage of thinking, I'm going to kill this woman because she wants to leave me.
Yeah. And
that's what I was most afraid of. So you have to either come up with a plan or call 000.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of, is to have a friend or a family member. Somebody has to help you get out, and when you get out, you cannot go back.
Yeah.
You have to get out and go somewhere safe and go straight to the police and demand for them to help you. Do not take no for an answer. If I would have taken no for an answer, all of the times they said to me no or tried to deter me,
yeah,
I wouldn't have achieved as much as I did.
Yeah.
So it's really important to go to the police. And I know that they've completely done the wrong thing by me, but slowly they are being educated. I've been advocating, and other women and organisations have been advocating for a long time. You've got to get help. Please do not stay in that situation, because it's only going to get worse. Somebody who tells you they love you does not abuse you or hurt you.
Yeah,
it's really important to recognise that. You can have children, save them, save yourself.
And someone who abuses you doesn't love you.
That's right.
And because of a phenomenon that we call trauma bonding,
yes,
this is why many victims are staying in these abusive, violent relationships. Some of these, many victims do not experience physical abuse, but the psychological abuse, the emotional abuse, the narcissistic abuse is every bit as destructive in their life. But the trauma bonding, aka the Stockholm syndrome, the addiction to their abuser, keeps them in that situation. So I guess we need to change the system in so many ways, because the system is not working. We need to address trauma bonding. Saying to victims, why did you stay? Why didn't you just leave?
Well,
it's victim blaming.
Yeah, it should be, why did he do it?
Exactly.
Not why didn't you leave?
Yeah.
And what we need to realise is that women, when they get to that stage, have a very low self-esteem and low confidence, and don't have the resources. Yeah. So what needs to happen is there needs to be, for female victims such as myself, there needs to be an all-female DV team, specific DV stations, or women to go and see these women and get them out of that situation. There needs to be some further control where women are able to be taken out of that situation. There needs to be better resources. Quite often women don't have a phone, their phone's being monitored, their emails are being monitored, they don't have money. Tell me, how the heck is a woman going to get out of a DV situation when she's got no money, no car, no phone, nowhere to go? Yeah. So they're walking into that police station with nothing, and they're saying, "Help me, keep me safe." And I guess this is why your situation is just so terrifying, because many victims, as you said, their self-esteem, their self-worth is rock bottom. Yes. They're shaking so much they can't even hold a pen to write out their own statement. Right. The police are writing the statement and are failing to put in the woman or the man's feelings. How did this affect you? How did you feel when this was happening? And instead are just taking facts, making it very factual. This is a problem, because when a police officer writes your statement, it is not your statement.
No.
I've been in incidences now with the police when I say, I didn't say that, that's not my statement. You have to write it as what I'm telling you. Forget your police format. Yeah. You have to write the age, and I'm here, and I knew this person, I was married to, whatever. The most important facts of a statement are what you're feeling, what you're going through, what you're scared of, what they're doing to you, how you need help, and that you're at your last point of reaching out for some type of help. Yeah. You have to demand that the police write in what you're telling them, because quite often, and this has been through a lot of my statements, the police will try to put on their own opinion and their own view. They're not the victim. No. They're not the person going through the DV. They don't understand. And unless you've been through a circumstance of extreme domestic violence, You're not going to
You
understand.
won't understand.
That's right.
And this is, I guess, where we need the system to change within that culture, within the police force, in that having a domestic violence team, that's all they do. That these police officers haven't been out the night before looking at car accidents and, you know, people that have lost their lives are lying on the road, and they're not, you know, going through their own trauma. And that this,
and in my circumstance, you know, my abuser, his father abused his mother. So it's come from generation to generation where the men feel entitled and the woman is a servant, and the woman is not entitled to speak or show or let her know let you know what her views are. So, you know, their way of thinking was that a woman has no choice to leave a marriage because once she's married, she's owned by the man. And once the woman chooses, or if she does choose to leave, she's better off dead.
yeah.
And that is their way of thinking. It's backward, it's disgusting, it's wrong, it's evil.
Yeah.
And you can see this through generation to generation, it's coming through. And it's really, really scary. So educating young men now that domestic violence is never on and violence is never an option is the most important thing, to educate the young men right now, to make them understand what DV is and what should not happen and what they should do in certain situations.
Yeah. Education, absolutely, and talking about the importance of having empathy, but, you know, consequences.
Yes.
You know, that there's this massive sense of entitlement out there with these abusers. They're narcissists. That level of arrogance. The laws don't apply to me. You know, they're beneath me. I'm special.
Yes.
And, you know, basically, we need to teach these people at a very, very young age to have compassion for their fellow human being. But we also need to back up terrible behaviour, abusive behaviour with consequences.
Yes, and there needs to be a much harsher sentence. So throughout everything that I've done through advocating, I've had my documents tabled in Parliament. I've been advocating for change, and it's now apparently it's a criminal offence for a police officer to look up someone's details unlawfully. There is an incriminating, or they may be charged, and there will be prison time. So
this is all you're responsible for these
I'm
changes.
one of the people responsible for this change, and it's been slow, very, very slow. And let me tell you that the people that are making some serious decisions are reluctant to change because the system has been that way for so long.
Yeah.
And I don't think that women should be suppressed any longer, and women are very powerful when we come together.
Yeah.
We can certainly achieve a lot, and I would like to see the good men support us and stand behind us to advocate for these changes, because that's the only way things will happen.
Absolutely. Okay, Julie, look, I want to say thank you so very, very much for having the courage to speak out. I'm going to apologise to you. I'm going to say sorry on behalf of my fellow human beings for what happened to you. It should, you know, that should never happen to anyone, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through this.
Thank you.
I also want to say thank you for speaking out and helping to make those small changes, and hopefully will lead to big changes that will make it so that this doesn't happen to any other domestic violence victim. Julie, just lastly, just quickly, what goes through your mind when I say to you that when your abuser found you at your address that you thought was confidential, you could have been killed?
I could have. If I didn't have the most diligent safety plan, I would have been murdered. I would have been another statistic. And I had to put together my own plan and risk assessment on how to stay alive. And luckily for me, I had some help. There are women out there that have no help. What chance do they have?
Yeah.
when I saw the abuser driving up the street and I saw his car parked, I literally started shaking. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. It was like I was frozen, but I knew I had to protect my children. I knew that I had to go to the police. I knew that I had to report this because, you know, he could have very well had a knife on him.
Yeah.
And what do you do in that circumstance?
Oh my goodness, yeah.
There has to be some type of consequence for these violent abusers.
Yeah.
And he's been convicted, he's on the run.
Yeah.
But apparently he's overseas having a good life. What is the consequence? So he would think he's gotten away with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Julie. Look, thank you so much for giving to us of your time tonight. You've been absolutely amazing. And I just want to say that you are an absolute inspiration and you are helping other victims of domestic violence and narcissistic abuse. Yeah, thank you so much for giving us your time, and please take care and look after those beautiful children of yours. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you, Nova.